guys, it's Christy from World School Chronicles. I wanted to talk to you guys about how we got started with Worldschooling. In 2008, my partner that I was with at the time, he lost his job, and so my income was the only income, which wasn't a lot. We were really struggling. We were living in a crappy little house that was $600 a month. My son couldn't go downstairs because there was so much mold down there, and I had 4 kids. So we tried to make do, and it wasn't working. So November or early December, I had to sit my kids down, and I had to say to them, I don't think we're going to have Christmas. But they were great, and they said, it's okay. So we did Christmas. We didn't do Christmas, sorry. And after Christmas, one of my sons went to school, and somebody at school said to him, how was your Christmas? And he said, we haven't had ours yet. And I didn't know this. And so I got a phone call that day. And for months, I had been worried that social services was going to take my kids because we were so poor and I wasn't sure where their next meal was going to come from. So I get this phone call, and she said, hi, Christy, I'm from whatever organization. And she said, I realize that I understand that you didn't have a Christmas. And I said, no, we haven't had it yet. We were waiting for when I had a little bit more money. And she said, well, I'm from the Santa's Anonymous in town, and we have stuff left over. Could you please come in and we'll make some Pampers for your kids? So I went in, and there was so much stuff, and I brought it home, and my kids were so happy, and it was so hard for me to accept that help. And then in February, I found out that I was pregnant, and I was devastated. I didn't know how I was going to feed my kids now with 4 of them. I had no idea what was going to happen with a baby, and I was devastated. I cried. I went into such a depression, and that's not what pregnancy should be. It should be happy and, exciting, and I was devastated. So I called my mom, and she lived in another province, and she had said 2 years before that she had bought a house for $2,000. So I called her and asked her if she could help me. And she said yes. So I went out, looked for a house, and I found one for $10,000. So we moved. We moved into the house. I made payments to the owner, and in a year, we had a house that we owned. So we lived in that house for almost a year. The baby wasn't born in that house, but he grew up in that house. And then the following December, I had always wanted to buy a school bus, and so I put an ad on Craigslist saying that I was a single mom, I was looking for a school bus, we had kids, and what my budget was, and if they could take payments, it would be fabulous. Well, a few days later, I got an email from someone saying he had a bus, exactly what we wanted, and he was willing to take payments. So we went out to see the bus, fell in love with it, made our first payment, and bought the bus. And so then we started converting this bus into a motorhome, but we didn't have a lot of money. So we were getting things off of Craigslist for free, from friends, from family, from wherever we could find it, even from the dump. But we converted this bus. And so May 1st, we took off from the bus. My son was almost a year old. I think he was about 6 months old, 6 or 7. We took off in the bus, and we traveled around in the bus. Well, we traveled around the bus for almost a year, but October came. It was getting really cold in our bus because we live in Canada. So we decided to park the bus on my partner at the time's property and his dad's property. And so we parked the bus, and I bought tickets, and we went to the Dominican Republic. And so after tickets and everything like that was purchased, passports, all of that kind of thing was purchased, we had $300. So we set out with $300 for the rest of the month. And it wasn't easy, but we did it. So you don't have to be rich to live this life. You just have to be a little bit crazy. So we did it, And that's pretty much how we started World Schooling. So for those of you that say that you need to be rich to World School, you don't. So right now, we're back in Canada. We've done most of the west coast of Canada, and sorry, I'm sitting on a rock and it's not very comfortable. So we've been doing most of Western Canada. We want to do the East Coast as well. We do what I like to call slow travel. So we stay in a place for 6 months to a year to really get to know the place, get to know the culture, and then we move on. But while we're in those places, my budget is really limited. We live on less than $1,000 a month. Last year, I lived on $600 a month because of an income cut, and plus whatever I could make from odd jobs and things like that. But they're really hard to come by sometimes. So I try and make our budget as minimal as possible. And so we utilize a lot of free food, a lot of free accommodations, a lot of transport that's low, all of that kind of stuff. We do a lot of hiking because that's free. We do a lot of free activities. So we try and cut as much cost as we can, and that really helps. We eat like locals when we're in foreign countries, and that helps as well. So we do all of that. I also teach some classes to local people for English, for childcare, for preschool, those kinds of things. And that's how we get by. And we don't live a luxurious life while we're traveling, but we do have a good life. And looking back to where we started, where I wasn't sure how I was going to feed my kids next, and I wasn't sure, where they were going to get their winter coats from, and if I was even going to lose my kids to social services. We have a great life now. And a lot of that has been me changing my thinking over the years. I don't find the negative now. I try and find the positive. So one time, for example, I booked a hotel, and I had arranged a couch surf with another family. And when we were almost there, the lady messaged and said she forgot that they were having a birthday party that weekend, and so we couldn't come. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And it could have been horrible and terrible, and I could have dwelt on that. But instead, I was like, what are we going to do? So I got on my tablet and I looked around, and I found a hostel for $20 a night, and kids were free. So I made a quick called them and asked if that was really the case, and they said, well, I'd have to pay for my daughter. So for $40 a night, we stayed in this hostel, and it was kind of a party hostel, but it was okay. My kids really loved it. They were 13 and 11, and the baby was my 6-year-old now was 2 at the time. And so it was good. It was a really good experience. The kids got to talk to lots of people, and after 9 o'clock, all the partiers left to go party, and we had the hostel to ourselves. So the people that stayed back were pretty low key and pretty quiet, and we never ever heard people come in the night, nothing like that. And it was okay. I could have dwelt on how horrible it was, but we chose to dwell on the positive. And so this was in Miami. While we were in Miami, we found all kinds of free stuff to do, free stuff to see, and my kids still talk about that trip. Part of that trip as well, to save money, we took the bus from Edmonton, Alberta, which is just north of Washington, Montana, and we went all the way to Windsor, Ontario, which was by Detroit, and then we went down from Detroit down to Miami on the Greyhound bus. It was 5 days and 5 nights on the bus, but again, we made as much positive out of it as we could. So we brought a suitcase full of food. I budgeted for 1 meal per day on the bus, so we had meals in that suitcase that were easy to eat on the bus. The kids each had their tablets, they had movies, they had games, we had lots of things on the bus. And my kids still talk about that trip to this day on the bus. And the reason why we took the bus was it was a whole lot cheaper The guy at Greyhound gave me a deal because he said if I was crazy enough to ride the bus with 3 kids, he'd give me his, he would give me his employee discount and a companion fare. So with all the discounts, it came out to $200 for that bus trip. It was pretty amazing. We met some really amazing people on the bus and had a great time. And then I got a deal on Spirit for $35 per ticket from Miami to the Dominican Republic. So for under $500, I got 4 of us to the Dominican Republic. And that's another way that I travel on the cheap, is I try and utilize as many deals and specials and all that kind of stuff as I possibly can. And yeah, so that's how we started, and that's where we've come in the last 5 years. And right now I'm only traveling with my 2 youngest, who are 2 and 6. The older kids are either on their own, and my 16-year-old is now living with his dad. So it's certainly not easier traveling with 2 little ones. There's a lot to deal with, but again, I try and find the positive, and I really cherish my time with my 2 kids, so it's good. Where we're off to next, I don't know. Hopefully Alberta, and then hopefully Eastern Canada, and I'd like to be out of Canada by October. Thanks again. See you next time.